My name is Romy Price, and I used to believe in honesty, in marriage, in politics, in the kind of justice that shows up in campaign slogans. Turns out slogans lie just as easily as people do. It's early October in Maple Creek, Ohio, a small suburban town that smells like wet leaves and yard signs. Everywhere you look, my husband's face smiles from posters nailed to every front yard. Ethan Price for mayor. To most people, he's the charming local hero. To me, he's the man who turned our home into a political stage. We've been married 12 years. I've seen every version of him. The nervous young councilman, the late-night speechwriter, the man who promised me we'd change our town together. Back then, I believed him. Back then, we meant something. But something started to change this year. It was subtle. Small cracks at first, missed dinners, a new assistant who handled communications, longer hours at the office but fewer text messages, and then the receipts started showing up. Restaurant bills, car rentals, hotel bookings, all charged to the campaign card. At first, I wanted to believe it was just sloppy accounting. Politics can get messy, but I couldn't ignore the pattern. The same name appearing again and again. Olivia Heron Consulting. The name meant nothing to me at first, until one night I looked her up. Her photo came up on my laptop screen. Sharp suit, blonde hair, and that smug smile of someone who's already won. And right there, in her portfolio, I saw my husband's campaign listed as her client. My heart dropped. I remember staring at that screen, my hands shaking. The air felt heavy, like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. It wasn't just that Ethan had cheated. It was that he'd used our cause, the community, the trust of our neighbors, the very campaign I helped build, to fund his affair. When I confronted him, it was supposed to be a conversation. I rehearsed it in my head, calm, rational, controlled. But when he walked into the kitchen that night, smelling like expensive cologne and guilt, something inside me cracked. "Ethan," I started quietly. "Who is Olivia Heron?" He froze. It was the kind of stillness that tells you everything before words do. "She's a consultant," he said after a long pause. "We brought her on to help with messaging." "With messaging?" I repeated. "You mean with your campaign or with your marriage?" He sighed, rubbed the back of his neck, and said the line that broke me completely. "Romy, let's not make this about us. The campaign needs focus. Not make this about us." The man who used to bring me coffee during early campaign mornings now looked at me like a liability. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him feel the weight of what he'd done. But instead, I just stood there, quiet, cold, calculating, because something inside me was already shifting. That night, after he went to bed, I sat at the dining table with my laptop. I opened every public record I could access. Campaign expenditures, donor lists, consulting invoices, and there it was. A paper trail that read like a love letter written in numbers. Transfers, consulting fees, private dinners, hotel bookings, all under Heron Consulting. Each line item was another stab to the chest, each dollar sign, a new bruise I couldn't see. But underneath the heartbreak, a spark began to flicker. Because if Ethan thought I'd just quietly play the betrayed wife, he didn't know me at all. He had built his career on image, polished smiles, public speeches, photo ops with children and small business owners. But I knew the truth. And in politics, truth is dynamite. I started making copies. Every receipt, every payment log, every consulting note with suspicious timing. I hid them in a private folder, encrypted and untitled. Something no one but me would ever find. It wasn't about revenge yet. It was about evidence. But the deeper I dug, the darker it got. Because Olivia wasn't just his mistress. She was his business partner. He had been funneling donor money into her company for over a year. He wasn't just betraying me. He was betraying everyone who believed in him. And suddenly, my heartbreak turned into something colder: purpose. Because I realized something that night. If Ethan wanted to play politics, I'd play too. Only difference is, I don't need to win an election. I just need to tell the truth. And when I'm done, it won't just ruin his campaign, it'll end his career. But before I could move, before I could take that first real step, something happened. The next morning, I got a letter. An anonymous envelope slipped under my front door. Inside was a single printed photo of Ethan and Olivia holding hands at a hotel bar. And a note, typed in bold letters. "You don't know the half of it." My breath caught. My hands trembled. Someone out there knew what he'd done, and maybe they wanted to help. Or worse, maybe they wanted to destroy us both. The photo burned into my mind. Ethan, Olivia, the dim hotel bar. Their hands intertwined, and that single line under it. "You don't know the half of it." I stared at it for what felt like an hour. Then I checked the lock on the front door. Twice. Someone had been close enough to slip this envelope under my door without being seen. Someone who knew exactly what Ethan had done. Maybe more. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt wrong. Too quiet. Too large. Too full of ghosts. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, my mind racing with questions. Who sent it? Why now? And what did they mean by the half of it? At 3 a.m., I got up, poured a glass of wine, and sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where my marriage had crumbled days earlier. The photo lay there, mocking me under the warm yellow light. I whispered to no one. "What else are you hiding, Ethan?" That question became a loop in my head. By sunrise, I had decided I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to investigate. The next morning, I drove to the campaign headquarters. It's a rented storefront in downtown Maple Creek. All glass windows, stacks of yard signs, volunteers buzzing like bees. The place smelled of coffee, ink, and ambition. I walked in with a calm smile. "Hey, Mrs. Price," one of the interns chirped. "Here to bring lunch again?" I smiled faintly. Something like that. Ethan wasn't there. He was meeting donors. Convenient. But Olivia was. She stood near the copy machine, phone in hand, laughing. That same smug laugh I'd seen in her photo. Our eyes met for the first time. "Romy, right?" she said, extending a manicured hand. "I've heard so much about you." I looked at her hand but didn't shake it. "I'm sure you have." For a split second, her confident smile wavered. Then she laughed it off. "Ethan said you were direct." "Then you know I don't like liars," I said quietly. The room fell silent for a beat. A volunteer looked up from her clipboard, awkwardly pretending not to listen. Olivia just smiled again. "Well, politics isn't for the faint of heart." She turned back to her phone. But as she walked away, I caught a glimpse of something. A folder on the desk beside her labeled Private Contributions, Q3. I memorized the code number printed at the bottom, because I knew right then the answers were in those files. That afternoon, I drove to the only person I could still trust, Eleanor Hayes, my college roommate turned investigative journalist. Eleanor worked for an independent news site that loved exposing local corruption. If anyone could help me follow the money, it was her. She opened her apartment door in sweatpants, holding a coffee mug that said, "Trust no one." Perfect. "Romy?" She blinked. "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't," I said, handing her the envelope. She studied the photo, the note, the exhaustion in my face. "Damn," she muttered. "That's cold. So what do you want to do?" I took a deep breath. "I want to prove he's been embezzling campaign funds into Olivia's company. I have some records, but I need to connect the dots." Eleanor nodded slowly. "You're talking about a felony, Romy. If this is real, it's bigger than just a scandal." "I know." She leaned back on her sofa. "You realize that if we go public, he'll come after you hard. Legally, financially, maybe even personally." I looked her in the eye. "He already took everything from me. What else is there to lose? Eleanor smirked faintly. Fair point. She pulled out her laptop. All right, show me what you've got. For hours, we went through the files I'd saved, scanned invoices, expense reports, donation transfers. Eleanor's eyes sharpened as she pieced things together. You see this pattern? She said, pointing to the screen. Every time the campaign gets a large anonymous donation, a payment goes out to Heron Consulting within 48 hours. I felt my stomach twist. So he's laundering donations. Exactly. Probably from people he can't legally accept money from. The realization hit like a punch. He wasn't just cheating me. He was cheating the entire system he swore to protect. Eleanor looked at me. We could leak this, but you'd need solid proof. Something undeniable. Bank statements, emails, maybe a recorded confession. I hesitated. You think I can get that? She gave a half smile. You're his wife. He still trusts you. Or at least, he thinks he's fooled you. That's your way in. That night, I returned home to find Ethan sitting in the living room, tie loosened, scrolling through his phone. He looked up and smiled. Hey, hun, you were out late. I forced a gentle tone. Just needed some air. He patted the seat beside him. Come here. Big week ahead. I sat. He started talking about polling numbers, community support, the momentum. And all I could think about was the pattern on his tie. Red and navy stripes. The same one he wore in the hotel photo. My hands clenched under the blanket. Ethan, I said softly, do you ever think about how much people trust you? He chuckled. All the time. It's what politics is built on. I nodded. Trust. The word tasted like poison. He didn't notice. He was already back on his phone, typing something, smiling at the screen. Maybe Olivia, maybe someone else. It didn't matter. Because while he was busy living his lie, I was already building mine. Later that night, I emailed Eleanor. Subject, step 1. Message, I'll get the proof. He'll never see it coming. She replied within minutes. Subject, you're sure? Message, be careful, Romy. Once you start, you can't undo it. I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before I typed back. Good. I don't want to. As I hit send, the house felt different. Quieter, heavier, but alive. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt dangerous. But danger has a price. And the next morning, I'd learned just how high that price could be. Because when I walked out to my car, there was another envelope on the windshield. This time, no photo, just one line. He's not the only one being watched. My chest tightened. Someone knew I was digging. And suddenly, the hunter realized she might not be the only one playing this game. The morning air was thick with fog when I found that second envelope. Same paper, same typewriter font, but no photo this time. Just the words. He's not the only one being watched. For a moment, I stood frozen in my driveway. The world around me was quiet. Too quiet. I looked around. The street was empty, but I could feel eyes on me. I tore open the envelope again, searching for anything else. A symbol, a clue, a scent. Nothing. But I knew one thing. Whoever sent this wasn't warning me. They were testing me. That day, I met Eleanor at a small cafe downtown, the kind with scratched tables and espresso so strong it could burn through lies. She arrived late, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses. Don't freak out, she said, sliding into the booth. But I think someone's been following me since last night. My stomach dropped. You sure? Pretty sure. Same gray SUV, parked across from my apartment, then again near the newsroom. I told her about the envelope. She went silent for a long time, stirring her coffee. Then she said, Romy, we might have stepped on something bigger than Ethan. I frowned. Bigger how? Eleanor leaned in. If he's taking money from illegal donors, corporate ones, maybe foreign, then it's not just him and Olivia. There are others protecting him. I sat back. The pieces were rearranging in my mind. Ethan's sudden campaign growth, the anonymous donations, the late-night phone calls. He wasn't just corrupt, he was connected. I spent that night going through Ethan's office at home, He kept a polished mahogany desk, everything labeled, color-coded, almost obsessive. But even neat people make mistakes. I found a hidden drawer behind a false panel. Inside, a black USB drive, no label, just dust. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. At first, nothing. Then a folder appeared. Event, budget, restricted. Inside, spreadsheets, invoices, digital receipts, and a document titled Heron Payroll Daxel SX. I opened it. There it was, a list of payments from the campaign account to shell companies, each tied to consultants that didn't exist. And one stood out, Olivia Kent, $95,000. I took a deep breath, screenshotted everything, and uploaded the files to an encrypted drive. Then I called Eleanor. She answered on the first ring. I found it. She didn't even ask what. Bring it tomorrow, somewhere safe. But tomorrow never came the way I expected. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, a black sedan pulled up outside. A man in a dark suit stepped out. Sharp, polite, rehearsed. Mrs. Price? He asked, flashing a badge. I'm Agent Cole, FBI. My blood ran cold. He continued. We're conducting an investigation related to campaign financing. We'd like to ask you a few questions about your husband. I played dumb. My husband? What's this about? He smiled. It's better if we talk somewhere private. I hesitated, but he handed me a card. You can call me anytime. Just remember, the longer you wait, the fewer options you have. Then he left. I stared at the card for a long time. Was he real? Or another warning? I texted Eleanor. FBI showed up. Cole said it's about Ethan. She replied almost instantly, Don't talk to anyone, not yet. Meet me tonight, same place. That evening, rain poured over the city, a sheet of silver washing away everything except my fear. I reached the cafe early. It was nearly empty, lights dimmed, the air thick with roasted beans and secrets. Eleanor wasn't there yet. I waited, 5 minutes, 10, 20. Finally, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Romy Price, a man's voice said. Yes. This is St. Joseph's Hospital. Your friend, Eleanor Hayes. She's been in an accident. The world spun. What? How bad? She's stable, but she asked for you. When I got to the hospital, she was barely conscious. Scratches on her face, one arm in a sling. They hit me, she whispered. Black SUV, same one from before. My eyes burned. Eleanor! She grabbed my wrist, forcing a small flash drive into my palm. Backup copy, she said. Keep it hidden. Don't trust anyone, especially not Cole. Her grip weakened. They know you have the files. You're next. Her heart monitor beeped faster and a nurse rushed in. They pulled me aside as doctors surrounded her. I stood in the hallway, shaking, flash drive clutched in my fist. Later that night, back at home, the house felt different. Heavier. Darker. I poured another glass of wine and stared at my reflection in the window. Somewhere out there, someone had tried to kill my only ally, and they were coming for me next. But fear has a funny way of sharpening purpose. I opened my laptop and connected the drive. Inside was the same data, but also one more folder Eleanor had added. Recordings. I clicked it. The first audio file began with static, then Ethan's voice. Unmistakable, calm, confident. I told them to run the donations through Heron. No one will trace it back. The media's too busy chasing scandals that don't exist. Then Olivia's voice. What if Romy finds out? She won't. She's too soft for this game. I froze. He underestimated me, again. And that was his final mistake. I opened a new email. To Agent Cole. Subject: Information about Ethan Price's finances. But before I could hit send, I stopped. Eleanor's warning echoed in my head. Don't trust anyone, especially Cole. I deleted the draft. If I wanted justice, I'd have to deliver it myself. And tomorrow, I'd start with the one thing Ethan valued most, his reputation. Because in politics, you don't have to kill someone to destroy them. You just have to make the world stop believing in them. The next morning, I didn't feel like the same person who'd woken up crying 3 weeks ago. Back then, I was a politician's wife. Now, I was something else. A problem. A threat. And I planned to make good use of that. I brewed my coffee and stared at the sunlight cutting through the kitchen blinds. Ethan was already gone. Another early meeting, no doubt. The silence was liberating. That's when I opened my laptop and logged into the campaign's public donation site. I clicked Create New Event. The title I typed was simple: The Cafe That Was a Town Conversation. A fake community meetup, just like the pop-up events Ethan loved. Except this time, the microphone would be mine. I spent the next few days organizing quietly, booking the Old Town Cafe that had closed during the pandemic, calling a few trusted friends who had left Ethan's campaign, and inviting local reporters under the pretense of a community listening session. I made flyers, bright red, handwritten. They read, "Transparency starts with truth. Join us this Friday, Maple Creek Cafe, 7 p.m. By Thursday night, the whispers had already spread. Even Ethan mentioned it at dinner, casual as always. Some civic group's doing a transparency event downtown, he said, slicing his steak. Cute idea. Probably college kids trying to go viral. I hid a smile. Yeah, probably. If only he knew. Friday night arrived. The air buzzed with the energy of small-town gossip. Dozens of people gathered inside the dim cafe. Teachers, shop owners, journalists, even Ethan's campaign volunteers. I stood near the back, wearing a plain black coat, hood up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. When the host, a retired teacher named Mrs. Delaney, tapped the mic, the chatter quieted. "Tonight's about honesty," she said warmly. "A citizen here wanted to share something, anonymously. She calls it the price of power." I pressed play on my phone. The speakers crackled, then Ethan's voice filled the room. "I told them to run the donations through Heron. No one will trace it back." Gasps rippled through the audience. Then Olivia's voice. "What if Romy finds out?" "She won't. She's too soft for this game." People turned to one another, whispering. A reporter scribbled furiously. I looked around, watching their faces shift from curiosity to shock to fury. It was like lighting a match in a dry forest. By the end of the clip, no one was talking. Just silence. Heavy. Electric. Dangerous. Then someone asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Who sent this?" Mrs. Delaney hesitated. "They wanted to stay anonymous." Another voice shouted, "If this is real, Ethan Price is finished." And just like that, the spark became a wildfire. By the next morning, the recording had gone viral. The price of power was trending across Ohio. News outlets ran headlines like, "Mayor candidate accused of misusing funds, affair with consultant." Ethan's team scrambled. He went on local radio, denying everything, calling it fabricated propaganda. But the recordings were too clear. The numbers matched. And the people of Maple Creek, my people, were angry. For the first time in years, they saw through him. I should have felt satisfied, triumphant, but I didn't. Because just as the story broke, I got another message. A video file, no sender name. When I opened it, my stomach turned to ice. It was a recording. Not of Ethan, but of me. Hidden camera footage from inside my house. Me copying the files, plugging in the USB, and a message appeared at the end. Truth cuts both ways. Panic set in. Someone had been inside my home. I tore through the rooms, checked every lock, every window. Nothing. Then I called Eleanor's old contact at the newspaper, a quiet, skeptical editor named Marcus Lee. He answered after 2 rings. "Romy, you okay?" "No," I said, breathless. "Someone's been watching me. They have footage from inside my house." Silence. Then, "Romy, you need to disappear for a while." "What?" "Ethan's allies are panicking. When people with power panic, they don't sue. They erase." He was right. That night, I packed a small bag, laptop, the original USB, the flash drive Eleanor gave me. I checked into a motel 30 miles out of town. From there, I watched it all unfold on the news. Ethan's campaign crumbling, his press conferences filled with rage and denial. They were calling for an official investigation. And in every clip, his smile looked thinner, tighter, more desperate. But something told me this wasn't over. Because as I scrolled through the comments under the latest news post, one caught my eye. From an anonymous account, it read, "Nice move, Mrs. Price, but you just exposed the wrong man." The motel room smelled like old smoke and cheap bleach. I hadn't slept in 24 hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that video again. Me, caught on camera. The words, "Truth cuts both ways," flashing on the screen like a warning. Someone was watching me. Someone smart. Someone close enough to know exactly how to scare me. The question was, why? Ethan's career was already burning. Who else had something to lose? I opened my laptop carefully, tethered to a VPN, and started digging through the files Eleanor had left me. There were donation ledgers, meeting minutes, invoices, and one encrypted folder I hadn't noticed before. It was labeled Harrogate. My fingers froze. Harrogate wasn't a name I recognized, but when I cross-referenced it with local government records, something chilling appeared. A community development fund, the same one Ethan used to funnel campaign money, was connected to a private consulting firm based in Columbus. Registered owner, Olivia Kerr. But the next line stunned me. The co-founder was Senator Malcolm Harrow, Ethan's biggest political ally, the man who funded his campaign from day one. Suddenly, everything clicked. Ethan wasn't the mastermind, he was a pawn, a face. The real corruption ran deeper. The affair, the money, the manipulation, all part of something larger. And when I went public, I hadn't just humiliated Ethan, I'd exposed a pipeline of dirty funds tied to a sitting senator. That's why someone was watching me. I'd kicked the wrong nest. I leaned back on the creaky motel bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily. Fear tasted metallic on my tongue. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You're in over your head, Romy. Leave town tonight, or we can't protect you." "Protect me?" I typed back. "Who is this?" No reply. Just a single image sent 2 minutes later, a photo of the motel sign outside my window. They knew exactly where I was. I grabbed my keys, heart hammering, and ran. The parking lot was empty except for a black SUV idling near the corner. I ducked behind a vending machine and waited, breathing through my sleeve. The SUV lights flashed once, then turned off. That's when a voice behind me whispered, "You picked a hell of a time to make enemies." I spun around, ready to swing my bag, but stopped. It was Marcus Lee, the editor who'd warned me to disappear. He raised his hands. "Easy, it's me. Marcus, how did you—" "Followed the trail. You weren't exactly subtle." He gestured toward the SUV. "That's not the press. That's Harrow's people. They've been cleaning up loose ends all week." I stared at him, shaking. "What do they want?" He looked grim. "You, mostly. The original files. You hit them harder than you realize." I hesitated. "Why help me, Marcus?" He shrugged. "Eleanor was my mentor too. She told me once, if you ever see the truth buried, dig until your hands bleed." Something in his tone made me trust him. We drove all night. Rural highways, rest stops, silence. By dawn, we were parked outside a worn-down gas station near the state line. Marcus opened his laptop. "You said you had the Harrogate folder?" I nodded, handed him the USB. He started decrypting it, frowning. Lines of code, hidden archives, encrypted emails, all spilling across the screen. When the final file opened, we both went still. It wasn't just evidence of corruption. It was a list. Names, payments, timestamps. City council members, police chiefs, judges, even journalists. And there, buried halfway down, Marcus Lee. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He stared at the screen, jaw clenched. They framed this," he muttered. "I didn't take anything, but I saw it. The hesitation in his eyes. The guilt." He looked at me, voice low. "Romy, You need to destroy this file. If it goes public, they'll kill you. And you? He smiled bitterly. I made my peace the day I chose to tell the truth. Then headlights flared in the distance. Two SUVs approaching fast. Marcus shoved the USB back into my hand. Go, now! Come with me! He shook his head. Someone has to hold them off. I hesitated only a second before running toward the woods behind the station. Gunshots cracked through the night. I didn't look back. Branches tore at my coat, mud splashing underfoot. I ran until the engines faded, until the only sound left was the ragged beat of my own heart. When I finally stopped, I collapsed beside a creek, clutching the USB. It was cold, dirty, but still there. The truth, humming quietly in my palm. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was survival. When the sun finally rose, I was still crouched by the creek, soaked, shaking, and holding that damn USB like a lifeline. The woods were silent, except for the slow drip of water from the branches. I had no idea if Marcus was alive, no idea if they were still looking for me. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stop now. Not after everything, not after him. I walked for hours until I reached an abandoned rest stop. The payphone booth still worked. Barely. I dialed the only number I remembered from memory. Federal Crimes Division, Washington, D.C. How may I— This is Romy Price, I interrupted. I have evidence of political corruption involving Senator Malcolm Harrow and multiple state officials. They tried to kill me last night. There was a long pause. Then a calm voice said, "Stay where you are. We'll send someone." I hung up. I didn't trust that voice. It was too calm. 2 hours later, a gray sedan pulled up. A woman in a dark suit stepped out, flashing a badge. "Agent Lorne," she said. "You're Ms. Price?" I nodded cautiously. She gestured to the car. "Let's talk somewhere safe." Something in her tone made me uneasy. Still, I followed. We drove in silence, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few minutes. Finally, she said, "You know, Ms. Price, you made quite a mess. The senator's office has been flooded with calls since your video." I stiffened. "Good. Maybe people will finally see what he is." She smiled faintly. "Oh, they see it. But that's the thing about power. It survives perception." Then she turned to me. "Tell me, do you have the USB?" Every nerve in my body screamed, "Don't answer." "I'm not handing it over," I said quietly. Her smile vanished. "Then you might not make it to see tomorrow." That's when I realized she wasn't FBI. Her badge was fake. I lunged for the door handle, but she hit the brakes hard. The car swerved off the road into a ditch. Before I could react, she grabbed a gun from her jacket. But I was faster. The door slammed open, and I tumbled out, rolling into the dirt. I ran. Bullets cracked behind me, one grazing my arm, hot and sharp. I didn't stop, didn't scream, didn't think. I just ran. Through trees, over fences, down a narrow service road. Finally, I stumbled into an old barn, half collapsed, and hid behind a stack of hay bales. My breath came in shallow gasps. Blood soaked my sleeve. I held the USB in my shaking hand and whispered, "You're not taking this from me." That's when my phone buzzed again. A blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. "Romy." The voice was low, familiar. It was Ethan. "Where are you?" he demanded. "They're saying you've gone rogue. You need to stop before you get yourself killed." I laughed bitterly. "You suddenly care about my safety? You don't understand," he said, voice breaking. "They used me too. Harrow's team. They blackmailed me into that deal. I thought I could protect you if I played along." I froze. Protect me? By sleeping with Olivia and stealing campaign money? "It wasn't like that," he shouted. "She was their handler. They recorded everything. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd expose your family, your mother's hospital bills, your father's business debts." I cut him off. "Enough." Silence. Then softly he said, "They'll kill you for that drive, Romy. Please, let me help you." I almost hung up. But something in his voice, the same nervous tremor I'd once loved, made me pause. "Then prove it," I said. "Meet me at the place we used to campaign. The Old Town Hall. Midnight. He hesitated. I'll be there. That night, the rain came down hard, the kind that erases footprints. I waited inside the empty hall, lights flickering. When Ethan walked in, he looked older, thinner, broken. I didn't want this, he said. Any of it. Then why? Because I was stupid enough to think I could win in a system that's already sold. He reached into his coat and placed a folder on the table. Backup evidence, he said. Emails between Harrow and Kerr. This is enough to bring them down. I stared at it, then at him. Why give it to me? He smiled sadly. Because the truth should come from someone who never asked for power. For a moment, I almost believed him. Then the window shattered. Gunfire. Ethan fell before he even turned. I screamed, dropping to the floor as glass rained around me. Through the chaos, I saw her, Agent Lorne, stepping through the doorway, gun raised. Should have taken my offer, she said. I crawled behind a podium, grabbed the USB, and hurled a chair toward the light switch. Darkness. Footsteps. I ran toward the back door, clutching both the folder and the drive. Her voice echoed behind me. You think truth will save you? It never does. But I didn't stop. I disappeared into the rain, heart pounding, Ethan's blood still on my hands. And as thunder rolled above, I whispered to myself, if truth has a cost, I'm willing to pay it. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, calm, practiced, and completely hollow. Dean Price, my husband, my betrayer, was about to step onto the biggest stage of his career, and I was going to pull the rug out from under him. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Ivy. It's done. The file's uploaded to the voter page, scheduled for 7 p.m. tonight. That was it. No turning back. 7 o'clock, right when Dean would be giving his last speech before Election Day. I stared at the text until the letters blurred, then exhaled. I felt equal parts terror and power. I had spent months quietly building my case, collecting receipts, voice messages, emails from his campaign manager, each one painting the picture of a man who'd sold integrity for convenience. But this last piece, the live stream sting, the on-camera confession from his mistress, and the transfer receipts, that would burn everything down. Still, a part of me trembled. Not because I doubted what I was doing, but because this wasn't just his fall. It was ours. My name was still Price. My face still appeared on family flyers. And after tonight, every reporter, every voter, every neighbor would see me too. I met Ivy at a diner downtown. She was sitting in a booth by the window, laptop open, dark hair tied up messily. Her expression was a mix of excitement and dread. Last chance to back out, she said, not looking up. I'm not backing out, I replied. If anything, I'm late. She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was the page. Clean, sharp, official. A headline ready to explode. Candidate Dean Price exposed in financial and ethical scandal. Under it, the video, the documents, the timestamps, everything. I swallowed hard. When it goes live, the world will know, Ivy finished. I laughed, but it came out broken. Guess that's what I wanted. That evening, I dressed carefully, not like a grieving wife, not like a broken woman, but like someone ready to take back her name. A white blouse, black blazer, gold earrings, the same ones I wore the night he first announced his campaign. When I arrived at the rally, the crowd was electric. Flags, music, flashing lights, all choreographed to make him look like the savior of small-town America. He saw me standing in the back, and for the briefest second, his smile faltered. Maybe he knew. Maybe he didn't. But I did. At 6:59 p.m., I looked down at my phone. The screen blinked. Upload complete. The cheer of the crowd drowned out the first wave of notifications. But then, a ripple. People started glancing at their phones. Whispers turned into murmurs. Cameras shifted. Dean paused mid-sentence. The teleprompter scrolled on, But he stopped reading. His campaign manager ran toward the stage, face pale, and I just watched. Watched as the man who once promised to build a better world was torn apart by the truth he buried. Watched as his voice cracked, as his eyes darted toward me, not in anger, not even in hate, but in fear. He knew it was me. He knew I'd finally come for him. My phone buzzed again. A message from Ivy. It's trending, national. I felt the tears burning behind my eyes, but I didn't cry. Not yet. Because this wasn't over. Not until I told my story. Not until I reclaimed the name he'd dragged through the mud. As the crowd erupted in chaos, I stepped out into the cold Ohio night, the sky heavy with the storm that had been waiting for months to break. The chaos didn't stop after the rally. By midnight, the story had gone viral. Headlines everywhere. Dean Price's campaign implodes amid corruption and infidelity scandal. By morning, the media camped outside my house. Cars lined the street. Cameras flashed. Neighbors whispered through their curtains. I didn't hide. I brewed a pot of coffee, opened the blinds, and watched the storm unfold. For the first time in months, I felt calm. Not happy. Not vindictive. Just calm. Like the silence after thunder. Dean called. Twice. Then again. I let it ring until his name faded from the screen. He didn't deserve to speak to me, not after turning our marriage into a campaign prop. At noon, Ivy arrived, exhausted but grinning. You did it, she said. The ethics committee opened an investigation. He's officially suspended. I blinked, processing it. Suspended, I repeated softly. Not jailed? She shrugged. For now. But you know how this works. Once they trace the money, he's done. She paused, her voice gentler. And so are you, Romy. You don't owe anyone anything anymore. But that wasn't true. I still owed something. Not to him, not to the voters, but to myself. That night, I recorded a video. Not a polished campaign-style clip, not something filtered or edited. Just me, in my living room, hair tied back, eyes bare. I hit record. Hi, my name is Romy Price, I began. For years, I believed in a man who said he wanted to make this community better. I believed in love, honesty, and partnership. But behind that image was someone who betrayed not just me, but every person who trusted his word. I took a deep breath. I'm not here to destroy him. The truth did that already. I'm here to remind people that silence helps corruption grow, and that sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for your community. I paused, the words catching in my throat. I was scared. I thought my life would fall apart if I lost him, but when everything finally burned, I realized I was free. I stopped recording and uploaded it. Within hours, thousands of comments poured in. People, mostly women, thanking me for speaking up. Some shared their own stories of betrayal, not by lovers, but by systems, by people in power. For the first time, my story wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my voice. A week later, Dean resigned. No press conference, no apology, just a PDF posted online, formal, sterile, and soulless, like him. He left town 2 days later. I didn't attend the hearing. Didn't need to. Justice had already been served, not through courts or headlines, but through truth. I sold the house soon after, moved into a small apartment downtown, started working with Ivy's team on a transparency project, helping whistleblowers navigate the system safely. It felt strange, at first, but I liked the quiet, the clarity. One morning, as I walked past the community bulletin board, I saw a flyer taped up with big, bold letters. Women for Change, Local Civic Forum, hosted by Romy Price. I smiled. It wasn't about him anymore. It never really was. This whole time, I thought I'd been fighting Dean Price. But really, I'd been fighting the version of myself that stayed silent for too long. And finally, she was gone. I turned toward the morning sun, breathing in the crisp Ohio air. No crowds, no cameras, no lies, just me. And that was enough. The night before the debate, the town felt electric. Every local cafe, every neighborhood porch was buzzing with gossip about the mysterious video leak, the one exposing a potential misuse of campaign funds. I hadn't even released the full footage yet, just a 20-second teaser showing Ethan's voice saying, "Keep the invoices under her company name. No one checks." It was enough to light a wildfire. Inside my living room, my laptop glowed against the dark. The real file, the full hour of evidence, sat ready. Names, receipts, transfers, timestamps. I'd spent weeks compiling everything. And tomorrow night, right before the televised debate, it would go public. But the weight of it pressed down on me. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was a reckoning. At 10:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Romy?" The voice was low. A man's. "This is Chris from Channel 9. I know what you're planning. You should be careful. Ethan's people are already spinning the story. They're saying the footage was doctored." I smiled bitterly. Of course they were. Let them. The truth doesn't need filters. But after I hung up, my hands trembled. Not from fear, from adrenaline. I opened a whiskey bottle from the cabinet. Ethan had given it to me 2 years ago after a campaign fundraiser. "For when we win," he'd said, with that charming grin that used to make me weak. I poured a glass, then smashed the bottle against the counter. The sound echoed through the quiet house like a gunshot. My reflection in the window stared back, eyes hollow, jaw clenched. "You wanted a winner, Ethan," I whispered. "Let's see who wins now." Outside, the first campaign trucks rolled by, plastered with his smiling face. "Vote Whitaker, for an honest future." The irony burned. Then I opened my email and hit send, forwarding the encrypted link to 3 journalists, 1 state ethics board member, and the Independent Oversight Committee. The file was out of my hands now. All I could do was wait. Midnight came. My inbox flooded with replies. One journalist wrote, "If this is real, tomorrow will change everything." I stared at the message for a long time. It was real, every second of it. And for the first time since the betrayal, I felt something like peace. Quiet, trembling peace, settle inside me. Until the knock on my door shattered it. 3 sharp knocks, then a pause. I froze. The clock read 12:34 a.m. No one should have been here. When I opened the door, a woman stood under the porch light. Mid-30s, soaked from rain, eyes wide. "You don't know me," she said, voice breaking. "My name's Alana. I used to work for Ethan's campaign." I stepped back slowly, my heart pounding. "Why are you here?" She took a shaky breath. "Because I think I have something you need to see. Something he didn't tell you." The thunder rolled in the distance, and I realized the real story wasn't over yet. Alana stood in my doorway, rain dripping from her hair, her coat clinging to her frame. I motioned for her to come inside. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone had followed her. Then she stepped in, clutching a plastic folder against her chest. I shut the door and locked it. "Start talking," I said softly. "What do you have for me?" She looked exhausted. Her mascara had bled into smudges, and her voice cracked when she spoke. "I worked under Ethan for a year," she began. "Communications team. At first, he was charming. Always made us feel like we were part of something important. But after a while, things changed." I crossed my arms. "How so?" She slid the folder across my coffee table. Inside were printouts, emails, receipts, photos. "He wasn't just funneling campaign funds to his mistress," she said. "He was moving state money. Payments that were supposed to go to community projects, rerouted to private accounts." My pulse quickened. "Are you sure?" "I saw the transfers myself," she said. "He used dummy invoices from the consultant's firm as a cover. And Romy," she hesitated, her eyes glassy. He used your name on some of the approvals. You're listed as having signed off on 3 of them. The room tilted. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. He forged my signature? She nodded. Yes. And if this comes out, you'll be implicated unless you prove you weren't involved. I sank into the couch, my stomach twisting. All this time, I'd been preparing to destroy him, and he'd already set me up as collateral damage. Why are you telling me this? I asked finally, her eyes filled with guilt. Because I was part of it. I helped process those invoices. I thought it was just politics. You know, bending numbers. But when the money disappeared and he pinned it on some interns, I quit. I couldn't sleep. And when I saw your video teaser tonight, I knew you were about to walk into something dangerous. I stared at her, trying to steady my breathing. Ethan's betrayal wasn't just personal. He had weaponized my own name. The walls of my house suddenly felt too close, too small. I have copies of everything, Alana continued. Emails between him and the mistress, and bank statements showing the transfers. If you go public with the wrong version, he'll say you doctored it. But if you have these, she pushed the folder toward me again. He can't deny it. I took it, my hands trembling. Thank you, I whispered. She shook her head. Don't thank me. Just finish it. Make sure he can't do this to anyone else. Then, as quickly as she'd come, Alana left, disappearing into the storm. I sat there for a long time, the rain pounding against the windows, the folder heavy in my lap. Inside were pages of truth and a new kind of danger. Now, not only did I have to expose Ethan, I had to clear my own name. The clock struck 2 a.m. I opened my laptop, deleted the old file I'd sent to the journalists, and started editing a new one, combining Alana's evidence with my own footage. Every keystroke felt like a heartbeat. This wasn't revenge anymore, it was survival. By dawn, I had a new video ready, cleaner, sharper, irrefutable. The title on the screen read, "The Price of Power, The Truth About Ethan Whitaker." I hit upload, and as the progress bar filled, I whispered to myself, let the truth find its audience. The upload reached 100%. Then, a new message popped up on my phone. Unknown number, 1 line. You shouldn't have done that, Romy. My breath caught. The sender? Ethan. By morning, my video had already hit 400,000 views. It was everywhere. Shared in Facebook groups, text threads, local news sites. The comment sections were chaos. Shock, anger, disbelief, and fear. Because for the first time, people realized who Ethan Whitaker really was. At 7 a.m., my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists, supporters, strangers. Everyone wanted a statement. But I stayed silent. Instead, I watched the replay of my upload. The opening line echoed through my speakers. My name is Romy Price, and this is the truth behind the man running for your vote. Then came the evidence. The leaked invoices, the hidden transfers, the voice recordings. By the time the video ended, there was no doubt left. Ethan was finished, or so I thought. At noon, I got a call from Channel 9 News. Romy, Chris said, voice tight, Ethan's campaign is denying everything. They're claiming you fabricated the files. He's calling a press conference before the debate tonight, and he's naming you as the person behind a criminal smear. My stomach dropped. He's going to frame me. Worse, Chris said. He's bringing copies of financial forms with your signature. If those are legit looking, this could get ugly fast. I hung up and paced my living room. The video was live. Unstoppable now. But Ethan wasn't going down quietly. He'd built a fortress of lies, and I had just kicked in the front door. By 5:30 p.m., the debate hall was surrounded by press vans and protesters. Posters waved in the air, some with my name on them. Romy Price, whistleblower or fraud. I wore a plain black coat, my hair pulled back. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I couldn't stay away. I needed to look him in the eye one last time. When Ethan walked onto the stage, the crowd roared. Cameras flashed. He looked calm, too calm. That politician's smile, polished, rehearsed, deadly. Then he said it. I have reason to believe the recent smear campaign was orchestrated by a disgruntled ex-spouse. The so-called evidence was falsified, and my legal team will be pursuing charges for defamation and fraud. I clenched my fists in the back row, my pulse hammered. But before he could move on, something happened. The moderator's earpiece crackled. Then she froze. A staffer ran up with a tablet, whispering urgently. The moderator's face went pale. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, "we've just received a live update. The State Ethics Board has confirmed the authenticity of the financial documents leaked this morning. They've announced a formal investigation into your campaign." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ethan blinked, his composure slipping for the first time. "That's impossible," he stammered. The moderator continued. "They've also confirmed that the signatures used on those documents were forgeries." All eyes turned to him. The cameras zoomed in. For one glorious moment, he looked small. I stood up. Slowly. My voice trembled but carried through the silence. "You forged my name, Ethan." He turned, saw me at the back of the hall. Recognition flickered, followed by panic. Reporters swarmed. The audience shouted. The debate had turned into a spectacle, a live unraveling of his entire career. He tried to speak, but the words died in his throat. And for the first time since the affair, since the lies, since the humiliation, I didn't feel anger. I felt free. The crowd roared again, this time not for him. They were chanting one name. "Romy, Romy, Romy." I stood there, tears stinging my eyes, as the man who'd once controlled my life was escorted off the stage under flashing cameras and screaming headlines. Justice, raw, public, and irreversible, had finally found its way to him. When the morning headlines hit, I was sitting alone in the kitchen, holding my coffee like it might keep me steady. Mayor Caldwell's campaign implodes amid embezzlement allegations. Source claims funds routed to mistress's firm. It was surreal, reading those words. The man who'd once kissed me before every debate, who'd promised we were in this together, was now plastered across every screen in Ohio. A symbol of corruption and deceit. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. But beneath that emptiness was something calmer, like the eye of a storm after months of chaos. By noon, reporters swarmed our lawn. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some offered sympathy, others offered gossip. But my favorite message came from an unknown number. "You didn't just expose a man. You reminded this town what accountability looks like. Thank you." That one made me cry. A few hours later, I stood by the window, watching Cole's car pull up. He looked wrecked, tie loose, eyes red, posture defeated. For the first time in years, he wasn't performing. He stepped inside without knocking. "Romy," he said, voice rough, "you did this." I didn't deny it. "You did it to yourself." He stared at me, the silence thick with disbelief. "You think this makes you righteous? You think you're better than me?" "I don't think I'm better," I said quietly. "I just stopped pretending I wasn't." He exhaled sharply, eyes full of fury and despair. "You destroyed my career. You destroyed our marriage," I replied. "The difference is, mine wasn't a campaign." That landed. I could see it, the flicker of guilt he tried to smother. He turned toward the door but stopped. "You'll regret this," he said. "You'll see what it feels like when the world turns on you." I almost laughed. "Cole, the world already turned on me the moment you decided I was disposable. The difference now is, I turned it back." He left without another word. The next day, I went back to the community center where my grassroots work had started. The volunteers greeted me with quiet smiles and nods. No applause, no spectacle, just recognition. We got back to work, cleaning up local parks, organizing donation drives, checking on families who'd been hit hardest by the election chaos. It felt good, real, like something worth rebuilding. Later that week, the local paper ran another headline: Former mayor's wife launches transparency initiative for local politics. That made me smile, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because revenge, I learned, isn't about destruction. It's about restoration. I didn't burn his world down just to watch him fall. I tore down the walls so the truth could get in. And when people started showing up again, not for him, but for what we were building, I realized something simple. You don't heal by winning. You heal by rebuilding something honest from what was broken. One night, months later, I walked past City Hall. The banners were gone. The building looked tired, but the steps were covered in candles, left there by supporters who wanted reform, not scandal. I sat down on those steps, the same ones where I used to campaign for coal. This time, I wasn't anyone's wife. I was me, Romy Price. And as I looked out at the quiet streets of suburban Ohio, the town that had seen my rise, my fall, and my fight, I whispered to myself, "Never again." Then I smiled, because I knew the story wasn't over. It had just begun.